Hey, Doug.
Hi, everybody. Welcome.
Hi, everyone.
Hi. We'll get started in just a moment. We'll let everyone get in here.
How you feeling, Renee?
I have been tired this week, Doug. I'm not going to lie. But I feel pretty accomplished after Teach for LA. I will tell you that. You know, we had over 1,000 people registered and we had 37 workshops in 4.5 days. So
It was
Yeah.
awesome.
yeah, and attendance in all the workshops. I think honestly, I think our lowest workshop was like 25, and we maybe had one that was 25 and one that was like 30, and everything else was in the 50s, 70s, hundreds. So it was awesome.
Fantastic. Yeah.
Did you get any delivery at your house, Renee?
That was you?
Oh, I'm not saying it was me. I'm just wondering if you got any.
Oh my God. I texted Bobby and Yadira last night and was like, did you guys send me these flowers? I have this beautiful note, but it doesn't tell me who it's from. Oh, Doug, thank you so
Aw.
much. That was so
Oh,
sweet. And they're my favorite flowers. I actually named my daughter after stargazer lilies. So thank
really?
you. Yes.
Well, I knew that.
Oh, thank you. The
That's
mystery's
awesome.
solved. That's awesome. Thank you.
That was something to say that we all appreciate you so much and all the work that you did.
Well, thank you. That
Yes.
was so kind. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Well, it's so great to see everyone. We are recording, yes? Awesome. So here is May already. It's our final COP meeting for this semester. We'll probably poll everybody for their interest in what's going to happen next for this new fall semester that's coming so soon already. Once we know more, we do anticipate virtual fieldwork continuing in the fall. We do know that we have everything ready to go. So our hope is that we can poll everybody closer to the end of summer and see what needs there might be to determine a potential meeting structure for the fall. So welcome to our final spring meeting. Today, we're going to start with our introductions. Tell us how you're doing in the chat. And we're going to have two awesome guest speakers today. We're diving into apprenticeships and we're going to learn so much new stuff from Kathleen. So excited. But first, we'll start with diving into internships and work experience courses. We want to distinguish these from each other and look at some examples of them. And then, of course, we'll end with some save the dates. May is popping. There is so much good stuff for teacher preparation. If you're getting the ACTEP emails and the COP and CCCTPPs, we're trying to get the word out there in so many ways. So don't forget to ask us if you need to get on another listserv, but you're probably getting all of them and getting a lot of that good stuff. So we're going to start with kind of framing what workforce experience means. Internships, career work experience, practicum that we see so often in ECE. So I know a lot of you know about these, but let's get on the same page. Internships are pretty much a quick agreement that can go through your campus with a workforce partner pretty quickly. They're not tied to a course and they're often unpaid. They can be paid, especially if you have an organization, foundation, or grant that can cover it. So they're not necessarily directly through your college. And what happens is your career center advertises these positions most commonly, and your students, maybe a handful, 2 or 3, can go to an employer and get that internship. Now, this is different than our practicum classes that are so common in ECE and may be part of some EDU programs. These are linked to classes and experiences in those early childhood or other ed classrooms. And you do need an agreement for these because they're tied to curriculum and they can satisfy things from your credential or permit needs, right? So you're probably most familiar with practicum. But then we have something totally different called the career work experience course. This type of course is going to have one of those agreements that takes a lot longer to develop, and it's tied to Title V. You do get FTEs, and it might be for a variety of units, like students can work a certain amount of hours and get a certain amount of units that align with how many hours they completed. For example, these times are not standard for each college, but let's say you're paid, so you have to do 75 hours of that paid time to get, the unit, and others can be 60 hours per unit if it's not paid. That's just one way it could look. Now, this gets you to break the rules of traditional fieldwork and practicum because it's tied to a course, but there's really not a professor teaching content. Instead, the professor does things like run a workshop and engage students in training for resume writing, career advancement, right?
Megan,
But it's not
at some point if I could chime in about my experience with.
Yes, I was going to point to you in a second. Perfect. So in this work experience course, you're creating a new course outline, going through curriculum, getting an agreement with those partners so that you have a menu of partners that could participate, kind of expanding that internship and giving units tied to the work, right? But you can do things that aren't tied to your course outline that has to articulate, because you can expand on the ed pathway content that you're delivering in workshops and support for students. So it's hours on the transcript. It's really great. I haven't done it for dual enrollment. So let's start taking a look into this. I know Renee would like to give an example of career work experience.
Well, and it's kind of a unique example. As many people know, I've been in teacher prep for like the last 15 years of my career, but my students also, like over the years where they would be in classes with me, they'd get to know other skills that I had. And so I actually had a student come to me with a QE project where I mentored him with grant writing for the semester. And so his units were not tied to teacher preparation in our TEACH program. They were tied to him working with me as an administrator on campus who was also a grant writer. And then over the course of the semester, we worked together. He shadowed me. And then at the end of the semester, he helped to author his first grant, which was an ASG grant. And so it was a really unique example of kind of how a QE experience could be for a student. I didn't have a lot of funding at the time, so I wasn't able to pay him, but he did gain units and he gained great experience. And also what a unique thing to have on a resume. His goal, his end career goal is to be an accountant for a district office. So he did all the teacher prep classes and all the clubs and stuff simultaneously while getting an accounting degree. So I kept telling him one of these days, once he's got what he needs, he's going to be in great shape because his pathway has been so unique. So just kind of a different way that QE could be used kind of outside the box. And it was student initiated, which to me is how awesome when they come with an idea that you just, don't even realize it's such a great thing.
Thank you. So we get to look more into this, but we wanted to start with defining internships and CWE and practicum, because when Kathleen shares in a little bit, we're going to talk about something totally different. So it's kind of like example, non-example here. And so we want to welcome our first guest, and I'll let Shannon take over.
Yes, I asked Amy Babb, our work experience instructor, to join us today to kind of discuss what work experience looks like for our education students and the opportunities that she has within our community and how she's developed our program. And then some of the links here will take you directly to our website. I'm not sure if she has other things to share, but thankful that she is willing to be here today and share with us some more insight within work experience. So thank you, Amy.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here. Again, my name is Amy Babb, and I am a full-time faculty member at West Hills College in Lemoore. I'm also on the board of directors for the California Internship Work Experience Association. So this is what I do. It's a little bit unusual at our college, and I'm so thankful that they have a full-time position handling all of our work experience courses. So I do all of the what's termed as general work experience classes, which is any job, internship, or volunteer opportunity, as well as all of our occupational work experience classes as well. So it's a great program that, unfortunately, in the beginning, not a lot of students understood how it worked, and we're really getting that information out to our students that they can use, an existing job, something they already are doing. We love it when we're able to put them in an internship where they're able to practice some things that they're learning within their major. We can do what's called an internship level project. Renee just gave us a great example of that, and that is one of my favorite opportunities. We just had a student with COVID, we had to get very creative with what to do with our students. So one of our culinary students created a COVID handbook for a culinary classroom. And so that actually got hours within work experience and units. And we can even do something customized for a student who maybe, you know, they think they want to go into education, but they really have no idea what that means and what that looks like on a daily basis. So we can create an experience for a student where they're spending 60 hours doing some job shadowing and doing some career exploration exercises on their own. So the really great thing about the organization I mentioned earlier, is we're all sharing these different opportunities and really kind of creating this program and building this program even more right now, where it's not just you go here, you work these hours, we give you these units. It's really what the student needs. In my class, what I've done is they're not just going into work, and I'm not just going and evaluating them and getting some feedback, but they're also learning about soft skills. So some of you may be aware of the Chancellor's Office did an initiative. It was called a New World of Work. And what they did was they found the top 10 soft skills that employers were looking for, but maybe not necessarily getting. And they created some curriculum. So I use that curriculum. My students learn these top 10 soft skills, and then they are tasked with going into their workplace and applying those skills, and then telling us how, you know, how did you do? How did your outcome change based on understanding these really important interpersonal skills? Additional coursework that the students go through, they start to understand that learning is a lifelong journey, that they're not just going to go to school and get their degree in their major, get their job, and that's it. So we talk about that a lot. Again, skill building, how to self-evaluate, how to spend more time evaluating yourself, and not so much, you know, looking at what your coworkers are doing, but that self-assessment. And then how do you utilize the feedback that you get from your supervisor and from your instructor? So that's something that's really neat in this program, is that you're getting that partnership between the supervisor or the employer, the instructor, and the student. And we just all work together to really help that person become, you know, a marketable individual. We're working on all of the things that the students need to properly apply for jobs, resumes, cover letters, online presence. And those are all assignments that are done through Canvas. So I usually tell students, consider maybe about 10, 15 hours on assignments while you're in my class. And then the rest of the time is doing your work in the field and your hours with your units. I mean, students can, in occupational work experience, they can take up to 8 units. The really unique thing about this course as well is that this is a repeatable course. So I always tell students, if you your GPA is not so hot right now, take work experience, get an A, take it again, get another A, because you get the grade points for both of those opportunities. And they're learning through this. They're learning how to really look and self-assess and utilize feedback. Gosh, the hours, I was going to go over the hours. It looks like in the previous slide, you went over that, where it's, if a student is volunteering, that's across the board. It's mandated by Title V. It's 60 hours for a volunteer experience and 75 hours for if you're paid per unit. Occupational, they can get 8 units per semester. Does anyone have any questions or anything that I can answer?
I would like to tie in a little bit too, Amy, that so our students that are working in after school programs or that are paraprofessionals have the opportunity to take work experience. So they do know that those hours, because they're paid your 75 hours for those tasks, but then they also know that if they're in the Intro to Teaching course for the CID transfer, that they also have to complete 45 hours of observation. So that's added to their load. Many times our students will take the Intro to Ed course one semester, and then the following semester, once they're working in after school programs, we'll jump into the work experience.
Yes. A great majority of my students are working in after-school programs.
Are there any other questions for Amy or any thoughts that you know, something different that you might get to do at your college? None today.
I teach work experience at Chabot College, and we teach a co-rec seminar so that, and actually we require that students take both, so you don't necessarily have to do that. So that they take the seminar, and the seminar is where we work on things like the, you know, ethical considerations of working with children and writing a resume and educational philosophy and things like that. But, you know, it's always been focused on ECE before, but as we build up our teacher pathway, I'm going to rewrite the course description so that it encompass more of the educational pathway students as well.
That's great.
That's awesome. How many units is that co-rec course?
The co-rec is 1 unit, and then the work experience class itself, where they can take up to 3.
Alice, we also have that ECE EDU resolution. So if you have any pushback, or if you have to kind of showcase any other ways in the state where our groups are coming together, you know, to kind of unify our teacher pathways, that could be an example also.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Amy, for sharing what that looks like. You know, as we start to dive into looking at continuing to support our EDU programs and development, and really looking at pushing towards becoming a sector and having a seat at the table there. I think that work experience and some of those stackables for our students makes complete sense. So thank you for being here. We are definitely going to shift gears a little bit as we jump into looking at apprenticeships with Kathleen, because there is a huge different ball game coming up with apprenticeships and the development of what that looks like. So thank you, Kathleen, for coming today. We keep saying Kathleen's retired, but we know she's really not. She's been continuing to show up with us every month and share, and so we appreciate all that you do. So thank you for being here today to share this.
Thanks. Thank you, Shannon. I have a few comments about the work experience piece and the practicum, and then I'll transition right into apprenticeship. It's somewhat linked. And then Megan, when I do transition, can you show the slides? Because I put 3, there's a lot of lists on there and I won't remember everything that I wrote.
Absolutely. And at the end, I'll try to download this so everyone can get a copy, or you'll just get the copy when the recording's posted of the slides.
Okay, so before we transition, I want to mention a couple things. Thank you, Amy, for your overview about work experience. Some colleges, I just want to comment that, for instance, in our college at City College of San Francisco, our work experience is pass, no pass. It doesn't have a letter grade. That is up to your curriculum committee. So some of them differ slightly. And then we do have a max of 6 units and you have 8, but nevertheless, all the reasons you mentioned why it's valuable, absolutely. I've taught the class, so I agree. I agree with all of the things that you listed. I also want to point out 2 other ways that it's helpful. One is when students are taking a really challenging course, like for our students, it might be writing composition. It's really great to have a work experience course that's not that demanding. They're getting credit for working, and they, you know, it's not that heavy of a course academically. As long as you're going to work and they're doing a good job, they'll get their credits. They have to just fill in, you know, some minor assignments, but it's a way that they can take a breather instead of, and still be a full-time student and still get financial aid. And so for a lot of our students that can only, you know, handle maybe quantitative reasoning, that's their, you know, big hurdle. Composition, they want maybe some more, just some classes that aren't as challenging during that semester. So this is a way to say, wow, you can earn 3 units for just working, and you just have to, you know, do this, and then you can focus on your other courses. So that was helpful. I also want to mention, if you're developing a relationship with your work experience coordinator or your office, to really look at kindergarten work experience as being kind of a golden ticket. Kindergarten work experience can count for the permit. It can also count for, in most cases with most CSUs, for your elementary ed hours. So that's, you know, kind of a really good placement if your student is not sure if they want to go into ECE or EDU. They should try to get hours in a kindergarten, and, you know, see what that's like with the 5-year-olds. So as we go into apprenticeship, wait for the slides because I can't remember what I wrote.
Can you see it?
Not yet, but hang on. Oh, yes. Okay.
Okay.
There we go. Thank you. I'm on my phone today. I don't have internet, so things are very tiny. So we're in the San Francisco Bay region. I see Alice is on the call from our region, and Norma is on the call from our college, also in the region. We were approved a real in EED apprenticeship. And maybe you've heard the statistic that only 6.7% of apprentices in California that are registered are women. And that's very shocking and appalling, and really not in line with equity goals, that we would have something like apprentices that are registered going through an approved pathway, leading to increases in wages if they go to school and do experience hours, and only 6.7% are women. So the strategy for a long time has been to bring women to non-traditional apprenticeships. I don't think it's been that effective at 6.7%. There's some problem there. So the strategy I think that people are shifting to is bringing non-traditional apprenticeships into the light that are heavily female. So if you were to land on a sector in our college system that's heavily female, you'll hit ours, 85, 87%. Most certainly in ECE. EDU, it's the numbers drop a little bit, but it's still very heavily female, especially in elementary preparation. So an apprenticeship is a combination of an agreement between an employer, a college that is considered an RSI deliverer or through our courses, and then many cases also a union or most of the apprenticeships right now have union involvement, and they're representing both the employer and the worker. So in our apprenticeship that we've launched, it is registered with the Department of Apprenticeship Standards, Industrial Relations. It's new. Right now in the San Francisco Bay region, there's only one registered apprenticeship in ECE EDU, and that's at Berkeley City College. They were kind of our pioneers. We have a registered apprenticeship at City College that's just getting off the ground. It really took 3 years to really develop the RSI and the paired experience hours and get it registered and launched. And then there's another one that's going to be launched in August at Skyline College with the San Mateo Community College District. And that's using a different model. So we're kind of excited. We've got 3 very unique models, all paired with college coursework, an employer or a set of employers, and in our case, union involvement. Many times an intermediary is used to bring the employers to the table, or the unions. That's where I think most of the workload is. We know how to deliver courses, and we know how to plan courses for goals, whether it's a certificate or a specific job. We're pretty good at that. But it's bringing the employers to the table and then listening to what they want, who they're hiring, what skills they want for their employees now and what skills they're projecting that they want. And then really looking at labor market data. Are they having a hard time finding people? So apprenticeships in high demand areas are very common and very popular. The apprentices know they'll have a job when they're done, and they also know that their wages will increase. So looking at kind of this triad of employer, of college, and then union or employee represented body. Very often at colleges, the downside right now is that the heavy lift is often grant funded at our colleges. There's no, that I'm aware of, there's no ongoing apprenticeship pot of money other than strong workforce, and it's being used to seed apprenticeships. There are a number of grants that are operated through the state chancellor's office that we're waiting for eagerly to come out, but they tend to be, time limited. Now that's a problem to be on soft money. So we're hoping that with the governor's commitment to apprenticeship, and he's made a verbal commitment to billions of apprentices, as has our federal government. They're putting money into apprenticeship growth, and especially apprentices at community colleges, especially in non-traditional roles. We're hoping that this is, the time is coming. This is our moment. We'll be shining, and here's our opportunity. I do want to say, though, unlike some of the other things you just talked about, with an apprentice, they're hired immediately. So as soon as they start their RSI or their coursework, they are an employee. So an employer is willing to take on someone who's going to go through this pathway and hire them as soon as they start. So it's very different than maybe an unpaid internship or an unpaid practicum or an unpaid work experience. They have a job the second they start. There are risks in that, but there are also benefits because we know our students have to work. Sometimes they're paired with pre-apprenticeships that get them ready to be hired. And sometimes they can be paired with dual enrollment so that high school students have critical skills before they hit college or are able to be hired. Apprentices have to be 18 years old. So, and many jobs require that they be 18 for fingerprinting or clearances or health checks or whatever. In our field, they're going to have to be 18 to count in ratio and be fingerprinted. So no matter what the setting is. So pre-apprentices are kind of extras. They're not hired as real staff. So next slide, please. Okay, so I mentioned 6.7% of California apprentices are female. I mentioned kind of the strategies, and kind of in our field, really trying to align apprenticeships with ECE and the permit so that not only are our students able to be hired, but they're going to go up as their permit level goes up. And then in EDU, really tying them into I think the work experience person says she gets a lot of after school folks, and a lot of after school are going to take careers. They're pursuing careers at school sites. So that really makes sense that they want this experience on their resume and in their transcripts. But aligning it to an elementary teacher credential or pursuing school-based jobs. It's also very possible, and I know we have some interest in our region, in tying apprenticeship to high school, future high school teachers who are doing tutoring right now. And post-COVID, well, I can't say post-COVID, as COVID becomes more manageable, we're going to have a lot of demand for tutors with the learning loss that we know students have been experiencing, for student support professionals, for paraprofessionals, for all the kids who haven't been identified as having special needs this year, and for just tutoring to catch up. So there really is going to be a role for these school-based jobs that we know are going to be in demand, where students could get the experience they need and perhaps be hired even by partnerships with school districts. It then you see in special ed.
Your sound's
And,
breaking up a little,
while
Kathy.
special ed, while special, can you hear me? While special
back.
ed, okay.
If it
Special
gets
ed,
tricky, you can turn off your camera for a short time. It
Yeah.
might help.
Okay, thank you. Special ed's the #1 demand, but more of our students are interested in ECE. So we have to meet both those needs. So the last thing I want to mention on this slide is the after school network, CAN, which is housed in the Foundation for Community Colleges, will be developing an after school apprenticeship that they'd like to be launching this year. The idea is they develop, I'm on the what is it called? The Workforce Standards Committee. And so it's hopefully going to be in place. And then the idea is that a student could take any of the courses from any of the community colleges that would be participating and get their experience from participating employers and after school. So we'll see, it should be ready, as I said, this year. So lots of excitement. Did I have one more slide?
Yes, your last slide was to talk about the rough process of how to get started with this. You had earlier
yeah.
mentioned
Okay.
it took 3 years, right?
Yeah, at least 3 years. So basically you do you identify unmet labor needs. And it's important to really know from your employers. The centers of excellence have, really good labor market data, looking at not only who's hiring and who's advertising, but how long job postings are unfilled. And you can get that data, and how long job postings are continually listed. We've had a pause because of COVID, but I know they're already ramping up for summer and fall and really looking at workforce shortages. Then really looking at your employers, and you can pick kind of your biggest partners that you have right now that you have successful relationships with. They might be on your advisory boards. They might always hire your students. They might have been your former students who are now running programs. So your employers are just who's in your community that knows that you're a great resource and may want to partner with you. You look at their job requirements, their skills that are needed. You develop a course plan that fits their needs. For the school district, they wanted their employees to get an AS or an AA degree because they wanted some of these folks to go into parent a teacher or to go into some other jobs that required more units. So that was important to them. Then you submit all the standards and the work requirements. You have to submit the salary for each level. So in other words, if it's tied to the permit, let's say you get 12 units, you get this much, you get 24 units, you get this much. In EDU, it's a little fuzzier, but you can come up with some salary schedules. And then the employer identifies how they're going to place students, how they're going to hire them. You all start recruiting, and then you offer your courses and you have kind of a apprenticeship cohort. That is it in a simplified plan. There's still a lot of things that are getting worked out as community colleges go full force into apprenticeship. As you can imagine, lots of data details and data gaps, but I think it'll all get worked out. I do want to mention the last thing is that I don't know if you probably all know the term journey level. If you're in a plumber apprenticeship, you've got a journey level plumber, and they're kind of considered your high level, that they know more and they have expertise and they've done a lot of experience hours. So in our field, we may have in early childhood, our California mentor teachers are kind of journey level. In EDU, we may have our paras, our after school leads who've been in the field a long time and they're training other employees. And so we kind of have to define with the employers who journey level mentors are. And who has that expertise to help with the newbies when they come in, because they can come in pretty green. An apprenticeship can kind of start at nothing, hi, you've been hired and now you're in some classes. So we want them well trained. Okay, I think that's what I was going to cover, and I can answer questions. I'll turn my camera back on.
Thank you so much, Kathleen. I know that when I got to meet with you about this, it took some time to sink in. So I know that with everyone here, we have different levels of experience with internships, career work experience, and then this new, fairly new concept to some of us of apprenticeships. So what are some questions that are arising about apprenticeships and what's the difference? I see that Bill shared in the chat, expanding the number of males in educated related apprenticeships too. We need more females in construction. It's a 2%. Oh my gosh.
Absolutely. We've got to diversify all the way around.
Yes.
But we're just not doing a good job of females in any sector. So yeah, absolutely. We need more males in education and ECE.
I see that, Shannon placed in the chat some links for us. So the West Hills College ECE Assistant Teacher Apprenticeship is there for you to see. And Kathleen's document of the City College San Francisco Early Childhood Development Apprenticeship is there as well. So if you want to click on those and take a look, maybe a question will pop up. If you would like to have us share the screen and look at it, we can do that too. But we have allocated a little time to kind of process. So let's see.
I do want to say that there should, I think that, and that's, first of all, I did not realize West Hills had an ECE. I think it must have come up, it must have evolved through the SEIU agreement, because they're all pretty new. So that's wonderful.
I can tell you this came out 1.5 years ago because I was helping someone work with it, and then she left our district and I didn't know it continued because it's not on my campus. So I'm gonna bug my ECE instructor to see where we're at on our campus with this. So
SEIU, the union, Service Employees International, they actually seed funded some ECE apprenticeship startups, and yours would be right. It's in the right location, so I bet it was seeded by them. But we still are pretty new in the state to have these models, so we're treading on new territory. I will say though, I'm going to say if you've got federal and state commitments to increasing apprenticeships, and we absolutely have the data to say we have the women, we have disproportionately impacted students, we have English language learners. All three of those boxes we have in our classrooms in ways that other sectors don't, especially the gender issue. So it makes us really competitive for startup funds. So I think why we need to pay attention to this is you're going to see grants coming out or opportunities, and it could be a way to serve some of your students that really need a more guided pathway with more supports. I don't think it's for your students that are already far along, they're ready to, they've got 40 something units, or they have a CSU UC transfer agreement, or, it's not for a student that doesn't need support. But I think when this works the best, in my view, is when we target students that we know need some guided support, or we're targeting populations in our community that maybe didn't think they were going to college, or they're working, but they're really under resourced and they don't have qualifications to move up. And so they've been stuck. The other group that really makes apprenticeship, I think, resonate with are parents. And I think for all of us, we know a lot of parents get re-engaged in college when their kids go to school. And a lot of parents say, oh, well, I'd love to help at my kid's school. Maybe I want to be a teacher assistant. Maybe I want to work in after school. Maybe I want to be a teacher and I'll have my kids' same schedule, and I'll have a connection with them for the next 10 years. Or maybe I really like it. I never thought about this before. So getting parents engaged who maybe, they took a couple classes, they didn't finish, they had kids, they couldn't finish. That's a really untapped population. And we know right now it's mostly women that have been unemployed during this, have lost their jobs and have been unable to secure full-time employment because of the pandemic. So I think we're really meeting lots of needs when we focus on this.
I didn't make all those connections until right now, Kathleen. So yes, that makes complete sense as to why our campus did not get this program right away for apprenticeships. They put it in the west side out there in the rural areas where there is a huge need for that support. So a lot of returning adults that do not have the opportunity for education. So yeah, that makes me excited for them that was built there. And as I was going through, it says they gained 21 units of ECE credit with 0 tuition cost. So they're not paying for those courses at all through that.
Apprentices cannot be charged fees. So, and there have been some technical assistance workshops going on in our RJV. We're going to explore this more about how colleges can avoid losing money while they could still get the FTE, but apprentices don't pay tuition. So, and if you can get one of the CAI grants or one of the apprenticeship grants, there's even money for, computers and tutoring, and it's really beneficial for students that need a lot of support. I see Yadira's name on this call, and I know Yadira is working with populations of students very often that need a lot of support. They'd be a great cohort, for an apprenticeship, especially English language learners who also need English support. The data looks amazing when you get English language learners, female, disproportionately impacted students through to their AA and they're ready to transfer. I mean, I don't know,
yeah, I would thank you so much for naming that. I was actually, I had a student and I think we presented about this too in CCAOE, our good old days.
Yeah, when we saw each other.
I miss those days. I kind of miss the CAOE, by the way. Now I miss it. But I think you bring up a very good point, Kathleen. And I think that I actually had a couple of students who are from our South Bay WIB program. They started off as, with the non-credit courses in the adult school. They transitioned into credit classes in child development. Now, a lot of these students are looking for opening up their own daycare centers, right? Oh, let me turn on, sorry guys, I thought I had my camera on. My apologies, I don't look the best today, but it is what it is. But I do think that they are a very, we don't really tapped into that sector and it is growing a lot. I did have a couple of ladies, I had to translate my classes. So I did my PowerPoints and then I would translate them in Spanish because I had maybe like 4 of them who only spoke Spanish, and you can see those students come in with the little translator. It was like having my mom in class. And so, they developed a little group of tutoring. They would Zoom with me or call me. But I discovered they need a lot of more support. And I think 3 of the 7 that I had graduated. One of them got her AA degree. Sasha is one of them. And then the other ones open up a childcare center, which now are doing phenomenal. So on the pay scale, they started off very low and maybe not making money. And these are students that we do want to bring up and we want to tap into. There is a lot.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. I was going to say in addition to the CAI grants, California Apprenticeship Initiative grants, which are coming out sometime this year. And there are federal pay a youth grants. There's also a grant out for women in non-traditional apprenticeships right now, federal, not a lot of awards though. I think it's like 10 awards total in the country. Mm-hmm. But in addition to that, many of the colleges, probably on this call, are Hispanic serving institutions. Right. So pairing an apprenticeship with Hispanic serving goals is, to me, it's kind of very logical. So, there's lots of ways to use apprenticeship as a structured model. It doesn't solve all your problems, but it's a structured model that has employer buy-in. And that's one area where I think we're weak. We don't always get the employer voice and the buy-in and the, you know, them at the table saying, I want this, and I will hire this, and I will hire this, and I'll help you do this. So that brings the employer to the table, and it also, in a way, raises wages. It's not a miracle at all. There's a lot of issues, but if an employer says they're going to get a raise after so many units, it's different than what we know happens with many employers, which is you get hired and you never get a raise. No matter, you can have a BA, an AA, you're making the same amount of money as someone who just got hired. And we know in our field, it happens. So this is one way to counter that
Kathleen,
problem.
you made me wonder about the population that we mentioned, our high school dual enrollment students, that this could be challenging to do because of the labor law or live scan needing you to be 18. For example, my local K-12 came to me saying, hey, our admin is looking not as diverse as we want. We looked at our teachers, they're not as diverse as we want. We came to your community college thinking your future teachers are going to be the grow your own model, right? They're going to come our way. We would love to form some sort of path. Now, we didn't know, would this be internship, career work experience, or this new idea to me of apprenticeships? How would it work with the EDU side when an employer like a school district wants to grow credentialed teachers? We've talked a lot about ECE. It aligns beautifully with permits and all these paths. And Kathleen, you had mentioned it's a little more fuzzy with education. Students that want a credentialed teaching path. Any suggestions or ideas? Is there any models that are focused on EDU and elementary?
The Berkeley model, the Berkeley Community College model is an EDU pathway, but I think it's just looking at it in increments. For any, like in San Francisco, we have a para to teacher pipeline program that helps support paraprofessionals, but their problem, and I think everywhere in California, is turnover. A lot of paras burn out and they turn over, especially in special ed. You hire, you train, they're gone. So this is a way to provide education around content, to really look at turnover and give people tools so they don't run away. But also, yeah, I think it's very linked to EDU. We know a lot of our ECE folks go into K-12 also. We know a lot of our ECE folks would go into TK. So I think the fuzziness, the line is blurring. To me, getting an AA or an AS degree is your golden ticket, no matter what you want to do. And if you come out of this apprenticeship transfer ready, we did our job. And no matter what pathway. ECE,
is there a
EDU,
certain pathway that aligns better for the future K-12 teacher that besides ECE that does the permit path? Like,
yeah, ours is actually a more general pathway. It's not
unlike the AAT
major,
elementary teacher that's very prescriptive.
It's not the ECE straight major. It's we have a child development major, and we also just have a liberal studies just transfer. Our experience has been that the sooner someone can leave, the more likely they are to transfer.
So it sounds like not the AAT elementary teacher, but you have a more looser liberal studies transfer pathway into K-12 kind of focus.
Yeah, we don't have an elementary ed AAT, which everyone finds very funny because we've been operating for so long, but we had a lot of general ed courses that didn't exist and a lot of unwillingness to add a course that might only have 25 students.
Well, this suits your apprenticeship program then.
Yeah,
you were asked in the chat, do you happen to have a link to the Berkeley model you referenced as we close our discussion and get towards the end of the meeting?
Someone can email me and I can give you a link. I can give you the contact's name.
I'll post it. I'll post it out in our next email that goes out, Doug. I'll send that information out in the EDU COP.
Okay.
Awesome. Thank you, Kathleen.
Yes, thanp you. Any final questions?
I believe that's also who will be presenting with us at one of the upcoming ACTEP meetings too. So Megan will share that.
Yes. I will share upcoming events in just a moment, but I want to check if there's any final questions for Kathleen or any final things we want to note that we should follow up with. Go ahead and type them in the chat if something hasn't come to mind. I know. Doug?
I just want to say that everything you've been saying, Kathleen, seems to tie perfectly in with the equity, diversity, and inclusion model that we're all attempting to implement in our campuses. All the things that you talked about, no tuition fees, no textbooks, a non-traditional way of learning. It's all perfectly aligned. So I'm excited about looking more deeply into this possibility.
Yep.
Absolutely. Well, I'll go ahead and share screen. Give me a thumbs up if you're seeing the right one. Mine's not glowing for me to notify me. We have a few important events coming up that we want to make sure you know about. So there's the CTE discipline specific virtual gathering. We have shared this with you. This is on Friday, 12 to 1, and it's a presentation to the Community College Academic Senate. So we are going to pop these links in the chat, but you probably do have an email from us or ACTEP that is reminding you about these as well. There's also the ACTEP CCC TPP joint meeting. So exciting. It's on May 21st from 11 to 1, and we'll pop in the chat the RSVP registration doc and the meeting ID and Confer Zoom link for you. So this is really a special meeting because we're thinking of how we can work together to amplify all of our voices with the professional organization of ACTEP and our network here that we're a community of practice and part of, CCC TPP. We're especially looking to have regional leads that will help us to strengthen our ACTEP representation. It's probably the same thing you already do if you're a regional lead for a strong workforce, or you were for Ed Futures, or other things you're already doing. So we're looking for ways that we can move forward in the fall to start streamlining our efforts and less meetings, more focus and stuff like that. And the ACTEP speaker series is also coming up, open to not just members, but also our guests and friends. So May 26th at 3 to 5. Now, this one's going to be great. It is developing effective community college pathways. Shannon and I get to join others to talk about various aspects of our programs. And the goal is really, like it says on the screen, those 2+2+2 pathways of high school to community college to university, where we can try to reach down and catch students earlier, do that career exploration, and get some good articulation agreements with districts and university partners. Talking about challenges and barriers is a big part of it, and there's going to be a lot of room for discussion at the end. Don't forget, we have that community hub. So if you didn't teach an education class or you have faculty changing gears, they can download and import this whole virtual resource bank into their Canvas from the Canvas Commons. And that's the project we developed and updated. Shannon is still updating little pieces as they come in, and you'll get the latest version if you go to the link. And it's great because we do expect virtual fieldwork to continue for our education students in the fall at this point. So lots of resources, including the Zoom transcripts and docs from this meeting, will be on teacherprepprogram.org. And that includes the links to Canvas. And of course, on our social media, we also share a lot of this. So if anyone needs to contact anyone from this group, here is our team. And Shannon and I co-lead this group. So we're happy to poll you in the future, look for an email about what should we do in the fall? Do we want to keep meeting? We kind of have virtual fieldwork down and we're diving into other topics. Should that be lumped in with our CCC, TPP, and ACTEP efforts? What do you need? So look for a future poll. Not sure when it'll be yet. May is so jam-packed of good stuff, right? So we thank you for joining us, and we'll be on a little longer for any questions.
I also posted in the chat box the link to the Teach for LA page that has all of the recent recordings from their workshops. Most of those were completed by credentialed teachers, so those are all available for you as well.
Yes, please share freely with students and faculty. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.